Hi, welcome to episode 195 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns. And we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. If you haven't come and joined us, we will have a new knit along for the fall. I will talk more about it next week, but come join us because it's going to be a fun one. So hi, how are you? I hope that you are having a wonderful weekend. It is Sunday, August 12th, and it has been a week since I talked to you, and it has been a super fun week. Wes and I got away for our 10th wedding anniversary, and we went to Mackinac Island, which is a small island off the upper coast of Michigan. So we drove up there, which took us about a day and a half. We left Tuesday morning, and by Wednesday afternoon, we were aboard the ferry over to Mackinac Island. Mackinac Island has been around since, I believe, just before the 1800s. Well, obviously it's been around forever, but people were on it just before the 1800s. And today it is an island where no motor vehicles are allowed. So you see lots of horse-drawn carriages, and then you see lots of bikes and people walking around. You can do all sorts of things. Like I said, we took the ferry over on Wednesday evening, and we got settled in a beautiful hotel that Wes booked for us. It's called the Lilac Tree, and it was on kind of the main drag, and it's above the main street. So, and we actually had a little balcony, so we could go out and sit above the main street. Mackinac is basically a little tourist island. Main Street has all kinds of eateries and shops, and the big thing on Mackinac Island is fudge. They're a great fudge maker, started over there quite a while ago, and they now have multiple fudge shops, so those are up and down the main street. If you get off the main street, there are a few historical attractions. We went to Fort Mackinac, which has been there, I believe, since the 1800s as well. We got to tour some of the old buildings, and there were beautiful views because it's kind of at one of the highest points on the island. And so there's really good vantage point back to the mainland. I don't know exactly how far the island is off the mainland, but the ferry trip only took 15 minutes, so not very far. You can see it. You can also see the bridge that connects both sides of Mackinac City, and it's the Mackinac Island Bridge. Anyway, so that is kind of how we spent our trip. On Thursday, we went to see the fort, and then later in the day, we rented bicycles, and you can take, it's about an 8.5-mile paved trail around the island. We stopped and looked at the Grand Hotel, which is the oldest hotel on the island, and very grand indeed. You actually have to pay to go into the hotel, so we did not do that. What else did we do? We ate a ton. We sampled the local ice cream. We brought home a ton of fudge, both as gifts for friends and a little bit of tasting for us. And mostly we just wandered and had a good time and enjoyed being with each other. We left the island on Friday, and we got home yesterday, and then today has been a variety of chores and getting ready to go back to work. So it was a wonderful trip. It was a nice vacation. I was ready to come home and sleep in my own bed, but I'm not necessarily ready to go back to work yet. But of course, that will happen tomorrow. But I did get a ton of knitting done because we spent a lot of time in the car and just sitting around enjoying the island. And so I got tons of knitting done, so I have lots to share with you. Today it is super warm, so I am drinking iced tea in my Llama Love mug. I am drinking orange ginger mint from the Republic of Tea. It is ginger, orange bergamot mint, lemon thyme, anise, and blackberry leaves. This is the not pretty version of it. The pretty version of it comes in a tin, but I just bought a bag of refills because I already have the tin and it is slightly cheaper. So, and I'm drinking it iced. So, and this is, I really, really like this one. I drink that sometimes after meals, and I really like it. It's a good, cool drink, refreshing on a hot day. The weather while we were gone was absolutely beautiful. It was in the high 70s, and on the island was breezy. It was a little humid and stuffy indoors at the island, not so much at the hotel, but like in the shops and in various places we went. But as long as you were outdoors on the island, it was breezy and absolutely beautiful. We had perfect weather for it. And we've come home to a warm week. It's going to be in the 90s here. But we are already almost, I can't even believe it, we're almost halfway through August. So hopefully that will be settling down soon too. So the first thing I need to show you is technically not really a knit from this week, because I think I was actually done with it when I showed it to you. I can't remember if I had knit the second sleeve or not. I went ahead and blocked. This is the Playdate cardigan with the oh so cute buttons. I love those. I'm hoping it will focus on those. They are little, they almost look like little birds or penguins, except they are green and they kind of match the green of the sweater. Like I said, it's the Playdate cardigan by Tin Can Knits. I knit per pattern, except I omitted the pockets because they're so short and little on this one, and a baby's not going to use pockets anyway. I knit the 3 to 6 month size, and the yarn that I used was the Loopy U Solid series in the colorway Malachite, and I used about 1.5 balls, just a little under 300 yards. The pattern calls for slightly more than that, but I suspect that's because of the pockets. So I washed it, blocked it, put buttons on it, and it is done. So I don't really count that among the finished objects this week, but I figured I would show it to you anyway. So let's talk about finished knits for this week. I showed you a whole bunch of things that I was going to take on vacation with me, and I touched all of them and even got most of them done, so I will show you a few different things. The first is that I showed you the Lily Sugar and Cream in the aloe vera colorway, and I turned 1 ball of that into 3 lovely washcloths. This is the Leafy Washcloth pattern by Megan Goodacre. I had some questions about it last time, and I goofed on the linking in the show notes, and I believe it was Enid who mentioned it to me, and I fixed it, so it is done. These are a great pattern. They use about, oh, I can't even remember, about 22 grams, and they are absolutely lovely. This one is still a little bit wet. You have to wet them so that they'll lay flat, otherwise they like pucker in the middle, but it's just a super simple, and I need 3 of these. They're drying now, and I bought some Johnson & Johnson baby shampoo at the market today, so I'm going to take these in. It is someone at work who I see almost every day, and she is having a baby in the next couple months, and so I wanted to just do a little something for her, so that's what I did. So I got 3 of those done and finished off basically 1 ball. They were jumbo size balls. I think they were 75 grams. I didn't even look at the tag. Know if I have the tag in here. Let's see. I'm not sure that I do. Nope, I don't. So, no, sorry. They were jumbo size balls, and I got 3 washcloths and I had a little bit left over, and then I have another, I had bought 2 balls because I couldn't remember how much I needed, so I have them for the future. And so I hadn't been paying attention when I picked up the yarn. It was Lily Sugar and Cream, and it was called the Scents, and they're supposed to smell. Theoretically, they smell like aloe, but I don't smell anything. I washed them in a little wool wash, and I'm sure they'll go through the washing machine and dryer just fine, but they're like a very pale green and a little variegated, and so I like those. Those are done. Next up, yarn that I was doing for a review, and that is, I showed you before, the brown sheep yarn that I was using from, it is called Stratosphere, and it is from Brown Sheep. It is a DK weight yarn. Let's talk about the 2 hats that I knit, because I knit hats for the kids. So let me pull out the labels and I will show you. Again, this is Brown Sheep Stratosphere. It is 100% superwash wool, DK weight, 3-ply yarn, 3.5 ounces, 100 grams, 260 yards. So I really, really liked this. I checked the price. It is a DK weight, like I said, 260 yards, 100 gram skein. The price, I believe, I was having trouble because not all yarn shops use the exact MSRP. It looks like between $13 and $14 a skein for 260 yards. And I have been looking for a good replacement for Cascade 220. For, I will just say, political reasons, and I'll leave it at that. If you have questions, you can ask me, but I don't want to make the podcast about that. So I've been looking for a good substitution for Cascade 220 Superwash. And I think this is it. I really actually do. It's slightly more expensive, although there's a little bit more yardage, but it is a lovely, lovely yarn. So, I knit 2 hats, one for each of the niece and nephew, and technically, actually, I knit Miles' hat 3 times. I started with the Bumble pattern by Tin Can Knits, and got maybe 2/3 of the way through it and was not enjoying it. You know, so I love Tin Can Knits patterns because they are super simple. I have knit the Barley hat a million times. I have knit, I'm trying to think what else. The Antler hat, I've knit the Antler cardigan. I've knit quite a few of their patterns and I really like them. The last 2 patterns that I knit from them, the Playdate cardigan and the Bumble hat, I have not been that pleased with. And not because they're not easy to use or not well written. They both of them suggested knitting the yarn at a much looser gauge than I was really comfortable with. The Playdate cardigan wanted you to knit fingering on US 5s, and I think that's kind of loose and doesn't create a great fabric. I mean, sure, it's super drapey, and if you're knitting a fingering weight sweater, you don't need it to be super dense, but I would probably prefer to go down to like maybe a 3 on fingering weight. And I think I usually use between a 2.5 and a 3 when I knit fingering weight yarn sweaters for myself. On the Bumble hat, what she wanted you to do was knit the brim in 5s and then go up to 10.5s on a DK weight for the hat. And I just felt like that was going to be a whole bunch of holes, and so I took it down a little bit, a couple needle sizes. I think I was doing it on an 8, and it was still super loose, and I was just not happy with it at all. Then I decided to just do kind of a plain and simple hat for Miles, and I didn't really check my cast on, and I ended up with a hat that was huge. It would fit me and it would cover my ears, and I was like, good Lord, he's a toddler. He's not going to need a hat like that. So on my 3rd time through, I went through and picked out another hat pattern, and this is the one that stuck. This is, and I wrote down my notes today so I would have it. This is the River District hat by Chrissy Graham. It is knit in the Brown Sheep Stratosphere, the red colorway, which is Hot Air Balloon. And then I had some leftover Dreaming Color Classy, which is technically a worsted weight, but it went just fine. And I did a little bit of pom-pom and contrast brim in that. But the Stratosphere is the important part. I love the zigzag pattern in this. It is nice and substantive. It's squishy. I'm sure it's going to soften when I wash it. I haven't had a chance to wash and block it yet. It is not, it's interesting because I think it's a little bit thicker than Cascade 220. I always found Cascade 220 to be on the very light worsted side of things. The superwash was just slightly thicker than the non-superwash, but I really like this. It was a substantive yarn. It is, they're not kettle dyed, they are commercially produced, so the color is, on this one, is solid, but it stood up to ripping 3 times and looks perfect because I used the same amount of yarn for most of the hats. And I'm super pleased with this. So this is the River District hat by Chrissy Graham, and I just love the way this came out. And I loved using the yarn, and I have plenty left. I have about a half skein left, and so this is going to be mittens. I unfortunately don't have any of the blue left, so he won't get quite matching mittens, but I'm going to do little red mittens to go with his hat. So I will do those in the next week or 2, and then I will get my full review up on the blog. And now I'm sitting here looking at like the 2 antenna on my little pom-pom that I need to trim. Anyway, so this is one of Miles' winter hats. It actually makes 2 for him because I already had one for him. So I'll probably come up with 1 more, but I will also knit him some mittens. So let's move on. I did something similar with Roxy's hat. I went looking for another pattern for her, and I used 2 yarns for hers. The Stratosphere that I used is called Flying a Kite, and it is a pink with some bluey gray in there. It is a slight variegated, I can't say it's tonal because it has another color in there, but it's not like a super variegated. And for Roxy's hat, I picked Feathered Hat by Flock Fiber Studio. And again, the body is in Brown Sheep. in the Stratosphere colorway. As you can see, it's like not crazy variegated, but it is somewhat. And then I added, this is actually some Cascade 220 Superwash. It is sort of the remnants in my stash, and I had overdyed it with blue Kool-Aid, and I thought the blue in, the little bit of blue is very icy and almost gray in the yarn itself. It's actually not that bright, but I thought it would be a fun pop, and so I used up the rest of that. Like I said, this is Feathered Hat by Flock Fiber Studio. I knit according to pattern. It came in a toddler size, and so I've got the ribbing at the bottom and then the fun pom-pom at the top, and I also had about a half skein left over of hers, so she is going to get some mittens. Unfortunately, none of this left, so they'll just be plain mittens, because sometimes I do like the cuffs and the cord that connects the mittens, but I'm not going to do that this time because I don't have it. But I really, again, am super pleased. This one I only actually knit once, so I can't tell you. But I am super pleased with it. It's very pretty. It didn't do a lot of pooling. It's just a really nice yarn. And like I said, it's slightly more expensive, although you get slightly more yardage. I think the weights are pretty comparable. And I just feel like this is a great substitute. So I think I will definitely be using this more in the future for my superwash needs. And again, just so you can finally see it, that is Brand Sheep Stratosphere, and that is fairly new in the last month or two. So those are the hats that I knit on vacation, and like I said, the hats are done, and now I just need to knit mittens, and I am so-so on knitting mittens, so I'm going to try and crank those out, though probably not this week because I have a couple other things to show you for this week. So that's the second project that I finished on vacation, because I counted those two kind of as, they're listed as separate projects on Ravelry, but yeah. The third thing that I took with me to knit on vacation was Roxy's sweater. And I looked it up. The sweater is Little Buds by Umi Knits. And it is a cute, almost little coat in garter stitch. I am using some really, really beautiful yarn. It is something that my friend dyes. It is Treasure Goddess yarn, Treasured Warmth in her worsted weight, and she has pirate-themed colorways, so this is called Song of the Sirens. So this is her label with her little pirate sheep, and like I said, it's treasure worsted, or Treasured Warmth worsted weight yarn. It's 100% superwash merino wool, 100 grams, 200 meters, 218 yards worsted weight. And that is my friend Christine. She's in my local knit group. She dyes beautiful yarns, and I can't wait to show you this. I finished the whole body of the sweater because I did nothing but knit it for 2 days on the way home, and I am so absolutely beyond thrilled with the way this looks. Like I said, this is a little sweater coat. I have not woven in my ends yet, and I still have sleeves, but this is what I've done so far. So it is a yoked sweater. It has some concentric sections where you just make your increases, and then the really cute thing is right below where you divide, you knit these little leaves. It's 2 on the front and 2 on the back. I hope this is coming across nicely on the camera. It's looking different for me, but I'm hoping you guys can see it. And you knit these little leaves, and that adds a bunch of extra stitches and kind of gives you a feminine shape, and then it's like a little swing coat. So this is Roxy's sweater for this year. I am about, I would say about between 450 and 500 yards in. I finished the first 2 balls and started the next one. I am alternating because there is subtle variegation. This is kettle dyed yarn, and it is just beautiful. And I will have to block it to get the leaves the leaves are puckering a little bit. I'll show you one close up. But it's a really, really sweet sweater. So all it needs now is sleeves. The pattern itself calls for 3/4 sleeves. I'm probably going to knit them full because by the time I'm knitting a worsted weight sweater for a little girl that lives in Chicago, I might as well knit them full size. I'm really hoping that this fits her. It should be a little bit big because the sizes were 4, which she is now. She'll be 5 in October, and 6. So I erred to the larger side, hoping that it will fit her for a little bit longer. And this is her sweater, and then I ordered some wooden toggle buttons, and I'm gonna, I have only made one major modification in the pattern. The pattern calls for the I-cord edging to be knit concurrently with the body, and I wasn't sure where I wanted my buttonholes, and because I'm alternating skeins, I was a little concerned that that would make the I-cord edge look a little wonky, and so I decided that I'm going to do an applied I-cord edging after I'm done, and with that applied I-cord edging, I am going to do I-cord button loops. So I will put the toggles on one side and the button loops on the other and do my I-cord edging, and I might actually extend it down around the bottom of the sweater. The pattern doesn't call for that, but if I'm going to do it, I might do it all the way around. I haven't decided, but that's definitely how I'm going to do the button loops. So the goal this week is to knit my sleeves and get her sweater mostly done. The buttons that I ordered are from Estonia. I love Etsy. You can order anything from anywhere in the world. And of course, the buttons that I fell in love with were from a small shop in Estonia. I will share that when they arrive. So I ordered them yesterday, and they probably won't be here for another couple weeks. So, but my goal is to try and finish knitting the sleeves on this. So I am super thrilled with this. I hope she will be. Her birthday is not until October, so she won't be getting it until then. But I like to knit ahead because fall gets super, super busy. So those are the knits that I worked on while I was on vacation. And normally I take too many knits and I don't touch them all. And so I'm super, super thrilled that I touched them all and did so much. And like I said, my plan is to put sleeves on the sweater. The other project that I want to get cracking on this week, and I forgot to grab it, and I think I put it away. Yeah, I don't see it right out. I did some cleaning. I spun up a braid of Busy Bee fibers several weeks ago, probably a couple months ago now, and it was in kind of pastel colors, and it was called Candy Store, and that is going to be turned into a rabbit for the big sister of the expected little boy for the Playdate cardigan. And I want to get these out this week because baby boy is going to be born in September. So I'd like to get those out. So my plan this week is to finish the sleeves on Roxy's sweater and to knit a Mario the Artistic Rabbit, which is by Jenna Krupar. I've knit a million of them. I probably could do it with my eyes closed, but it's a hand-spun little rabbit with great ears. And so if you are tuning in for the first time, you'll get to see that. My hope is that I can do both the sleeves and the rabbit by next weekend, but if it bleeds over into the following week, that's fine. And then I would like to finish the mittens to match the hats, and those are my goals for the month. So I feel like it's, even though I said it's almost halfway through August, it's almost halfway through August, and I am cranking on my list for the month. If I have extra time at the end of the month, I am going to probably go back to one of the couple sweaters I have on the needles and work on that for a little bit. And then we will have a sweater knit along starting September 1st. I will talk about all the details of that next week. But my yarn is at my, I have a UPS mailbox and my yarn is there. So I'm excited to photo that this week, and I will talk about that next week as it all ties into the knit along. So that is what I've been doing. The final thing that I will talk about, and excuse the plastic, I meant to braid this up before I started, is that I started a spin, and it's not exactly the spin that I told you I was going to start. I told you I was going to start a double spin, which I am, in Hello Yarn. Originally, I had picked a couple braids for myself for a shawl, and I decided actually I wanted to spin something for someone else. So I have been cleaning my craft studio and moving things and reorganizing, and I bought some new organizing things from IKEA, and so I was transferring things from one display case to another, and of course I unearthed some things that I kind of forgot I had. I have so much fiber, I don't even remember everything I have. And that is terrible, and that is fine because I am going to be not buying so much in the next little bit. And so I'm attempting to spin through some of my stash, and I found these two braids, which are from the November 2015 Fiber Club of Hello Yarn, and they are Beelzebubs and Monsters, and it is pink and purple and then a little bit of brown and kind of an orangey color. And so I found these two and decided that I'm going to spin both bumps. I think I'm going to do it as a fractal spin. I have the first braid on the wheel already. I tore it into tiny strips and I worked through about an ounce of it last night. And then I think the second braid, I will either spin it straight through or maybe I'll tear it in half once. But make it kind of a very fractal stripey spin. So that is my goal for the next week or two and the fiber that I will be working on. But I am pleased to get so much knitting done. And, you know, I figured out that my crafts sort of wax and wane. July, I always spend a ton of time spinning. August, I spend very little time spinning because I've just spent so much time at my wheel. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out in the next couple months, but I have plenty of fall sweaters. I'm starting to get the sweater bug. I'm not quite there yet. I'm starting with these little children's sweaters, and it's still a little warm to be lugging around sweater yarn, but I'm starting to get the sweater bug. I have, well, we won't discuss how many sweater quantities I have, but I have like 2 or 3 sweaters I want to knit like right away, in addition to the 2 sweaters that I already have on the needles. So, I would say this fall is going to be sweaterlicious, and by the time we get around to Nanny Suemo, I may just be finishing sweaters. So, we'll have to see because I'm super excited to cast sweaters on. So, I think that does it for this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in with me. I hope it was fun that I had a little bit more to show you. I've been feeling like I haven't had as much to show you in the last few weeks, and next week I'll round up a bunch more projects that I'm gonna get on the needles and stuff, so I will bring some things for you to see. And we'll talk about the new knit along and some other things that I have had to keep till secret up until now, but hope to be able to share them with you this coming week. So, thank you for joining me. If this was your first time, I hope you enjoyed it. This is very much a representative bit of what the podcasts are like. Sometimes there's a little bit more spinning content, but this is pretty good. I had lots to show. And I will see you next week. So until I see you again, I'll say as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!